Chechnya is on the brink of a new war. The head of the republic is on his deathbed, and there has been an assassination attempt on the potential successor.
Someone fired at Kadyrov's car with, I think it's called a Muka grenade launcher. And then they found an abandoned Toyota Land Cruiser with Krasnodar license plates there.
What are the risks of a new power struggle in Russia's most unruly region, and who might end up on the throne as a result?
It could be individuals who maintain strong connections to the administration in Moscow, or various figures who are closely associated with different Chechen clans, whether it is Magomed Danudov or the widely recognized commander Abdi Alauddinov.
Why is Moscow so afraid of the overthrow of its own appointee?
The situation is quite tense in both Dagestan and Ingushetia as well. And of course, if Chechnya catches fire, it will ignite everything around it.
Today, we'll talk about the preconditions for a new third Chechen campaign, why the Kadyrov clan is already being written off, and what a new government in the region could lead to. We will now recall the previous devastating wars in the Chechen Republic, exactly how they ended, and what strategic lessons were learned in both Moscow and Grozny. Watch the evolving prospects of a potential new civil war in Chechnya right now, only here on the Arsenal program. Ramzan's iron grip has weakened. Rumors about his illness have been regularly circulating online for the past few years. And even though Dandan keeps surviving time after time, he looks worse and worse. The most high-profile story about the disappearance of the head of the Republic happened last summer, when the media reported that he nearly drowned at one of the Turkish resorts. According to analysts, the drowning was carefully planned.
I strongly suspect that what actually happened was Kadyrov being admitted to a medical facility somewhere in Turkey, because it is quite clear that the sanctions primarily hit Russian healthcare. And apparently, this whole elaborate story about his supposed drowning and subsequent rescue is highly questionable. A person who was never left alone for even a single second could not have possibly drowned or choked on water when surrounded by a team of people, the most modest of whom likely holds one of the very highest and most elite professional swimming qualifications. Accordingly, I firmly believe this was simply a carefully orchestrated special operation designed to legitimize his extended stay in Turkey for specialized medical treatment and facilities.
By the end of the year, Ramzan's condition worsened again. He was even absent from Putin's important annual state address, and ended up returning once again to the clinic. Apparently, realizing that doctors wouldn't be able to keep bringing him back from the brink forever, Kadyrov decided to play it safe and prepared his son as his successor. However, the idea of dancing to the tune of a spoiled child did not appeal to everyone in the Republic.
But no matter how much you dress up a teenager in camouflage, no matter how many times you seat him at the head of the table at security meetings, no matter how many awards you hang on him or titles you bestow, he remains an 18-year-old teenager. Unlike his feudal peers who once led principalities and empires, Adam Kadyrov did not grow up on military campaigns, and was not commanding soldiers at the age of 12. What we have before us is an ordinary, spoiled rich kid, raised in extremely sheltered conditions, in a palace, surrounded by several layers of security who made sure not a hair fell from his august head.
The culmination of the story was Adam Kadyrov's car accident in mid-January of this year. Initially, the story was presented as if the teenager's motorcade crashed into another car. A random driver was killed, while the younger Kadyrov was taken away in serious condition. However, as time goes on, more and more details are emerging.
My, reliable sources from deep inside Chechnya say that this wasn't a simple accident at all, but rather a deliberate attempted murder. And even the criminal cases initiated by the Republic's investigative committee are under Article 205 and Article 317. To put it in different terms, this is a cold-blooded murder and a terrorist act, since Kadyrov's car was targeted and fired upon with what I believe is specifically referred to as a Muka grenade launcher. And then they found an abandoned Toyota Land Cruiser with Krasnodar license plates, where one Muka had been fired and two more were still intact. So they hit the target with the first shot.
At the same time, it's worth noting that the accident itself in Chechnya. In Russia, this is being carefully hushed up, and the remains of Adam Kadyrov's car were taken to Moscow for an explosives expert examination.
If this really was an assassination attempt, it tells us that despite the fact that Kadyrov Sr. is still alive, the struggle for power in Chechnya has already broken out in full force today. And accordingly, various clans and, of course, the Kremlin have already begun to fight for this power in Chechnya.
It's not hard to guess how this might end, but the main condition of any power struggle is, of course, the removal of the previous ruler. While no one has yet dared to openly raise a hand against Ramzan, the fight against his clan is already in full swing.
Many sources say that his health is so bad that apparently this year will be the last for Ramzan Kadyrov. So absolutely no one can possibly guarantee that when Ramzan Kadyrov eventually passes away, his sons and relatives won't simply be exterminated and killed. Because, well, this clan has deeply wronged and systematically ruined the lives of not just dozens, not just hundreds, but thousands of people in the Chechen Republic.
At the same time, besides sworn enemies, it seems that even Kadyrov's own supporters have turned against him. There is information that his right-hand man, Abdi Aladinov, who commands the Chechen fighters in Ukraine, is already gradually pulling them back to Chechnya. According to experts, it was likely the Kadyrovites themselves who could have been involved in the assassination attempt on Adam Kadyrov. After all, not everyone can fire a grenade launcher, let alone with such accuracy.
There were so many of these very same grenade launchers produced during the First and Second Chechen Wars, and they continue to circulate in such incredibly large numbers throughout the region of Chechnya that, of course, by looking at the used weapon alone, it is absolutely and completely impossible to identify the specific perpetrator. In reality, it could potentially be almost anyone, and in fact, it could be individuals who are closely connected to the leadership in Moscow, or people associated with a variety of different influential Chechen clans, whether it's Davudov or the well-known Abdi Aladinov, who is also widely considered to be one of the prominent potential contenders for the position of head of the Republic.
Moreover, given Aladinov's close ties with Moscow, this option seems to suit many in the Kremlin. After all, Putin's primary objective today is to firmly maintain the region within Russia and under its control, regardless of the ultimate cost.
He's, well, for the Kremlin, more or less, firmly under their strategic control. And of course, the various events that are unfolding in the Republic today, I think, is certainly not something that currently suits the Kremlin. Especially since, as we understand, if Chechnya flares up, the entire North Caucasus will catch fire after it. And if indeed the situation in the Republic becomes unmanageable, then it becomes very difficult for the Kremlin to deal with everything that is happening around it, because the situation is already quite tense in both Dagestan and Ingushetia. And of course, if Chechnya catches fire, it will ignite everything around it.
And Putin remembers very well how this tends to happen. The bloody power struggle of the 90s, which didn't even succeed on the first try, will forever remain in the memory of Russian security forces as a shameful page in their history.
Much like what is happening in Ukraine today, the Russian authorities have clearly made a very significant mistake. They thought that 10 dozen tanks would roll in and everyone would scatter. It was just so ridiculous. They were shot up, their armored vehicles destroyed, and that was the end of it. That was the very first initial attempt, and then it became increasingly and painfully obvious that there would be a war, and it would be a brutal and devastating conflict. Of course, the Chechens were psychologically and internally prepared for this war.
In the end, the First Chechen War, and then the Second, claimed the lives of tens of thousands of Russian soldiers. With the help of Russian bayonets, Ramzan Kadyrov came to power, betraying his own people and swearing allegiance to Moscow. But it seems his time is coming to an end.
There's Ramzan Kadyrov, there's Chechnya under him and as part of the Russian Federation. Without Ramzan Kadyrov, there are a lot of questions about what will happen next in Chechnya.
But for the first time in 20 years, it seems the region itself might be able to breathe more freely, though it will have to fight hard for that chance. Did you like this video? Then be sure to take a moment to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our official YouTube channel, Arsenal, for more exciting content. The direct link is located in the description section right below the video.